Welcome to Joy Unfiltered. I'm Rachel, and this is a podcast about joy. Not the shiny, performative kind, not the everything happens for a reason kind. This is joy as a strategy, a way to stay steady when life feels loud, a way to stay human when things are hard, a way to lead, love, and live without burning out or checking out. Some episodes will be just me. Some will be honest conversations with people who have lived their way into a deeper, truer joy. No fixing, no bypassing, just real stories, real tools, and room to breathe. Let's get into it. Hi, and welcome to Joy Unfiltered. This is Rachel, your host, and you are in for a treat today. I have another amazing guest with me today, and I am just going to jump right into it. Her name is Leah Murphy. She is a somatic practitioner, nervous system educator, and habits health coach who works with women in midlife who are feeling tired, wired, or disconnected to rebuild a steady, trusting relationship with their body so they can feel calmer, clearer, and more at home in themselves. And who doesn't need a little more of that? So Leah weaves together nervous system science, which we can nerd out a little bit today. I'm excited about that. Body awareness and the wisdom of daily rhythm with a simple but powerful foundation. Real change begins with safety. When we stop fighting the body and start listening, energy returns, clarity deepens, and rhythm naturally restores itself. I'm down for all of that. Really excited. Leah lives in coastal Alaska, where the tides and seasons are a daily reminder that balance is never still. It's alive, rhythmic, and always unfolding. So Leah, welcome. I'm so excited that you are here today.
Thank you, Rachel. I'm excited too. A little nervous, a little excited. It's kind of the same, two sides of the same coin in a way.
Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely. And we were
yeah.
just chatting beforehand that, life brings all emotions. So today, if we kind of go in lots of different directions, we're just gonna be present and go with whatever comes up today.
Wonderful.
But would love for you to kind of introduce, I mean, I gave you a little bit of an introduction, but I know the audience would love to know a little bit more about kind of how you got to where you are. So whatever you feel comfortable, would love to know just a little bit about your history.
Sure. Yeah. Let's see where to begin on that. Well, I'll
That's a
say
big
like
question.
it's a big question. We don't need to make the podcast all about that. Um, Yeah, so I'll talk specifically about the somatic work and how I got into that because that's been life changing for me. So specifically, I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner, and when I was in my like 20s and 30s, I lived in Oregon at a small community, an off-grid community that ran a retreat and conference center. It was hot springs in the Oregon wilderness, kind of off the grid. I said that already. Anyway, but one of my community members there, his girlfriend was a somatic experiencing practitioner, and she was telling me about it, and I remember just being so curious and interested in what that was, and I didn't understand it at all. I didn't understand it at all. And I just remember thinking, okay, that's a little seed planted in me, and then we'll see what happens with that. Fast forward to maybe 5 years later when we first moved to Alaska. We moved, my partner and our two small kids at the time, they were 7 and 2. We moved to a really, really remote place. It was a fish hatchery. You can only get there by float plane or boat. We knew we were taking a risk. There's like 15 other people who lived there. I really like that remote lifestyle, like being immersed in the wilderness like that is just, there's a huge gift to that. But it was also very isolating and very challenging in many ways. It was really hard on the relationship with my partner and I. It caused a lot of stress. And of course, my kids were acting out because of that. Their behavior was changing, and I didn't know what to do. And then I remembered my friend who is the somatic person, and she had some online resources. And I went back to that work. I just remembered it, and it really helped me understand what was going on in my children's brains when they're having this behavior, right? Because, as parents, I don't know if you're a mom or not, but like when kids start to have challenging behaviors, it can be the tendency for us to react, to be like, what's wrong with you? Why are you doing this to me? Right? Like, we don't know. We're not taught these things. But what I learned is that, oh, actually, my child's brain right now cannot access any kind of reasoning, any
Mm.
kind of
Mhm.
they're in threat mode. Their body's responding as if there's threat. And learning that totally changed my perspective on behavior and what was going on and how to respond as a parent. I was like, oh, it's not me per se. It's the situation we're in, but now I can show up and support you in a different way. And that kind of just like, I took off on that, and just with when I started learning that, and I was just like, I know I got to learn this modality one
Mhm.
day. I didn't know when because I was stuck in remote Alaska. But then we moved about a year after living there. We moved into the Sitka, Alaska, which is the closest town, and I didn't have you have to fill out the application to be part of the program, and it could be anything from a clinician or a therapist to a body worker to a teacher. I didn't really have any of those under my belt as far as what my job was before, but so I got a job working with developmentally disabled adults. I did that for a
Mhm.
year, and then I did the application, and then I got into the program, and ever since then it's just been, yeah, life changing, right? Learning about the nervous system, how it works, first of all, like, talk about joy. That thing that brings me joy. I could totally dork out on the workings of, like, yeah, like fight, flight, freeze, or survival responses, polyvagal theory, like all that stuff. I just love it. And I remember thinking about how, like, wow, this is the science behind, or not science, the biology behind healing, really, right? And how our bodies are really designed to heal. This is something we naturally do, but the conditions for that have to be right.
Yes, I love that. I just wrote that down. The biology behind healing, right? Our bodies know, our brains know. I mean, we're designed in the way we talk a lot about on this podcast, or I talk a lot about with to women or to people as well, just about that, there's science behind joy. It's not just all this
Yeah.
fluffy stuff. And that is
Yes.
exactly what you're talking about, the biology behind how all of those things happen. The quick question that I have, well, two questions kind of before love your experience and the way that you even talk about how like Alaska is such a I've never been there. It's one of the three states I haven't been to, but what I've heard it's such a magical place. So what an amazing space for you to be in to learn these things. I would
Mm.
love just a little bit of a definition. One, you talk about the program, so I'd love to know exactly what that was. But also being a somatic practitioner, I'm not sure everybody knows exactly
Sure.
what that is. So if you can just talk a little bit, just kind of go behind,
Yeah,
step back a couple steps and just so that
sure.
we're all on the same page as we continue the
Yes.
conversation.
Yeah, I'd love to. And I'm going to try to make it really simple, because sometimes I can get caught up
Yep.
in the words about it. But essentially, somatic, if you break it down, it's made of the word soma, which just
Mm-hmm.
means the body, right? So as a somatic practitioner, what I do is help people learn how to build body awareness through feeling their feelings, essentially. That is the super simple thing. Feelings as in sensations and emotions. And from the somatic lens, these sensations and emotions are like these cues or these clues for what kind of support the body needs, right? It's like it's the body speaks through us in this
Mm-hmm.
kind of language, the language of sensation, right? And so what I'm doing is helping people to learn how to feel again, essentially, because feeling can be really hard. I mean, we all have our experience of, being overwhelmed, or maybe some people have a hard time expressing emotion, or, the ways that we self-soothe or intentionally shut ourselves down or dissociate because life feels too much. And, like, not at all judging that, because I have my own version of that, sure, as well. Um, but through somatics, what happens is you learn to build capacity. You learn to build, I guess, comfort, or comfort's a weird word, safety in what you're feeling, so that you don't necessarily have to shut everything down. Like, you can learn how to feel the edge of it and still be okay, and maybe bring in resources to take some of that edge off, but you can still be with your experience. And that's important, because when we are in a body where we are inhibiting what we feel, this is what trauma is from the lens of somatics, right? Trauma is, well, there's a couple definitions. It's
Mm-hmm.
the inability to be in the here and now, right? So think about when you get
Okay.
overwhelmed by feeling and how you're just like in your head and you're thinking and you're not really in the present moment. Trauma is also the inability to, um, I guess, act out a impulse for protection or expression,
Okay.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yes,
what happens
absolutely.
is there's that impulse, the urge or the cue to maybe it's protection, fight, say no, get the heck out of there. Or even I use expression too because a lot of us as kids, the kids are naturally exuberant and weird and wacky, and sometimes parents don't understand that or they might feel overwhelmed by it, so that gets shut down too, right? So
Right.
and there's energy behind those urges. And what happens is when that we don't get to complete or express those things, it gets shut down in the body. The energy doesn't go away. It kind of stays within our system. Our body's working really hard to keep it under wraps because there is energy to it. I like to think of it as if you're walking a dog, you have a dog on a leash, and that
Mm-hmm.
dog wants to run. There's all that energy of the dog, but you don't want to let it run, so you're holding on really tight to the leash. That's essentially what our bodies and our systems are doing to keep that energy under wraps. And
So
over
is that
time,
energy, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
yeah,
interrupt you. Is that energy then, so that happens, and is that then being expressed in our bodies in physical ways? And so, and we might not be realizing this, but is that what happens to that energy? Because right, because we don't, energy is energy, right? It doesn't go away, can't destroy energy, right? It just is, and it manifests in different ways. And so do you, and I don't even know how to ask the question necessarily, or maybe that is the question. Does that energy manifest itself in physical things, or is it just then in emotional ways?
yeah, I mean, if it doesn't get to resolve itself over time, it can result in what is called nervous system dysregulation, which because it's so much wear and tear in the body, which can show up so differently for so many people. It could look like not being able to sleep at night, high anxiety. It could look like autoimmune stuff or chronic pain or chronic tension, right? The list goes on and on and on. And it also depends on like our history of trauma too. Like especially early developmental trauma. So like the more our cup is filled, with these experiences, the more that that stored energy, call it stored survival energy, is going to express itself in these imbalanced ways. And also too,
Sure.
it's like sometimes though too, like the body tries to give us these opportunities for it to come out again. So you know about people who, sometimes they get in the same accident all the time, or we find ourselves in the same relationship patterns, or et cetera, right? It can be seen from a different perspective as it's seen as the body trying to help whatever was stuck within it resolve itself. Just
Okay.
kind of fascinating. And I mean, I can't speak to 100% truth in that, but there's some interesting studies that show, in my own personal experience, I'm like, okay, here's another opportunity, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So another thing you just said too, and again, I just like to make sure that everybody's on the same page, but
Yeah.
this whole nervous system regulation that feels like this is this, and I know it's not like a new trendy thing, but it feels like this is being talked about more and more and more. And
Yes.
probably because I am just aware, so I hear it being talked about, but it also feels like this is something new. We're talking about menopause and perimenopause
Yeah.
and cortisol and nervous system regulation and all of those things. So can you just give us a rundown when somebody says, I'm trying to regulate my nervous system? What does that mean? Or what does that
Yeah.
mean when you are coaching someone to help regulate their nervous system?
Yeah, I love that. So what that means is that it's kind of like what I mentioned before is like I'm helping them set up the conditions that regulation can happen. Like I said, the body can heal when the conditions are right. So I don't actually regulate people, but I help them learn tools that so that they can remind their body of the safety here and now, because that's what's needed in order for that settling, the balance, the regulation to return. Because you think all that suppressed energy, that's it's a response to threat, it's a response to danger, it's a response to things not being right. And so for the body to come out of that and things to resolve, there has to be a sense of safety or things being less bad, less tense, a little bit better, right? And I use
Right.
safety kind of loosely in a way because I just want to recognize for some people they're not in safe situations. The world is chaotic right now. There's scary things. I mean, it has been for a lifetime, but at least in the US, stuff is coming up. It's scary. People are under real threat. you know?
I mean, and just in context, I'm in Minnesota, and
Yeah,
people probably know that already. But
yeah,
and whenever people are listening to this, but January of 2026 was a really scary,
yeah,
unsafe feeling time in Minnesota. I mean, not that it's over now that it's February, but yeah, certainly
yeah,
that is happening for real.
yeah.
So when you talk about, so you say a loose definition of safety, when you say that word, like what is that including? Like what is in that
Yeah.
bucket of
So
safety?
when what I teach people to do is so coming back to the present moment. So remember, trauma is the inability to be in the here and now, through a really simple practice that when I first learned it, I was like, this is dumb. Because I didn't really understand it. Like I conceptually understood it, but I couldn't get the sense of my body what was happening. But just
Right.
orientation, which is just like looking around your room. Just so we can do it together if you want to for a
Yeah,
moment.
yeah, yeah. I would love to. I would love to. Yeah.
Yeah, what would it be like just to take a moment and let your eyes go where they want to go? So simple, right? And just be curious, like what are you drawn to? What kind of thoughts show up when you do it? Right. And I know
Hmm.
we're in a podcast, so maybe it's not
No,
you
that's
can't
okay.
the kids experience. But what you're doing is with this is, we have the brain stem there, right at the base of our skull, the top of our spine, which is our threat detector. So
Okay.
it's kind of always on as a way, as a function to keep us alive, of like this radar of whether the environment is safe or not safe, right? And so when we take the time, when we're in a space where there's no active threat happening, no matter what else is going on outside, no matter, and we take a minute to look around, what you're doing is you're reminding your nervous system that right here, right now, everything's okay. Even though I might feel chaotic inside, right here, right now, everything's okay. And oftentimes with that, people feel a little bit more settling, a little more grounding. Sometimes not though, too, because again, depending on our history, usually in early childhood, if we had environments that were unsafe or chaotic, sometimes, especially when this is new, looking
Mhm.
around can cause the body to remember that environments are scary, right? And so their body might respond in that way, right? With maybe a little
Sure.
fear, panic, a little stress, what have you. But connecting to safety in the here and now through orientation is the first. And then the
I love that.
second,
Through
yeah.
orientation. So connecting through orientation. And I like that. And I've done it in a couple of different ways because I talk about, oh, noticing joy. But even before you can notice joy, I like that this is even a beginner or more beginning step because you need to notice just being present,
Yeah.
right? And I think one of those things, and somebody it was said to me once too, is noticing something that is neutral.
Yes.
So, and maybe that's what you were saying as well, is noticing those neutral things because you're right, we have to feel safe. And the whole thing is our bodies, and I'm sure that I'm speaking to the choir when we're talking, but that our bodies don't recognize the difference between that saber tooth tiger
Yeah.
and our unread emails in our email box,
Yes.
right? That's still those things
Yeah.
both can make us feel unsafe,
Yeah.
right? And our body doesn't know the difference between those different stressors.
Yes.
So as you're saying, so I love that. So and you called it orientation, like orient yourself. That
Hmm.
is a great word. Orient yourself to now. I mean,
Yes.
being present feels like that gets overused as
Yeah.
well. It
Sure.
is the truth, but I love that. I love thinking about it or reframing that is orient yourself
Yeah.
to the to right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
It's
love it,
very
love it.
precise and specific, and it takes away any kind of fluff that might be associated with like being present, like kind of thing.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
and another
I
thing,
can go all woo woo, and that is totally
yeah,
fine. But
same.
but I also like I'm very cognizant and conscious of the fact that even though it sounds woo woo, sometimes it's not. It's real
Yeah,
science. So I
totally.
love that you're being really specific about that. Okay, so that was number one, and number two, I
Okay.
think you were going to go there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I want to say before I go into orientation doesn't just have to be through your eyes, it's through all your senses. It's connecting to
Okay.
them through all your senses. Some people have a hard time, like when they look with their eyes, it feels like too activating in their system. So,
Mm.
like, what happens if you just listen? Take a smell, even like touch your body, touch the chair underneath you, like feel what's here, so just, I wanted to say that. And again, and also speak to the fact that sometimes when you're looking around, neutral is a good place. It doesn't have to be something that makes you feel amazing to look at, right? Neutral is good, less bad is good. And sometimes for some people, I say, well, why don't, instead of like, as you're looking around, just acknowledge what's not happening right now. Even if that pile of laundry over there is stressing you out, even if whatever over here, everything is causing you stress, just notice what's not here. there's no alarms going off, there's no tiger in the room, et cetera, et cetera. Sometimes we need that explicit
Yeah.
reminder.
And
Yeah.
good reminder about all of the senses, because clearly
Yeah.
those are very powerful as well. It's interesting because it made me think of I use Headspace, or I used it when I first started meditating. And one of the things that he would say, which I love his voice, so I just love meditating through Headspace, but that he would say, notice like notice the weight of your feet on the floor, or your, the back of your legs on the chair. Oh,
Yes.
okay. Yes, that also helps me like ground myself, or orient myself to the present.
Totally.
Yeah.
100%. Okay, so orientation is the first little step, and then the second one is resourcing, which is nothing new, but it's just a good reminder for us to, and this is where the joy thing comes in. Remind ourselves of all the things that help us feel a little bit better, a little more comforted, a little bit soothed, even happy, joyful, fantastic, but it doesn't have to go to that thing, right? So, like, say I'm having a stressed out, a busy day, I got kids, things are wild most of the time, right? And I'm sitting down to work and I just can't, I just feel like maxed out, but I know I have to do the thing. So what do? Right? I could check out, but that's not usually helpful. So I reach for a resource, and resources can be anything. For me, it looks like often just putting a hand on my chest, and just it's a reminder for me to slow down. Oftentimes, when we are feeling overwhelmed, what we really need most is to pause. Like, what's happening within the body is that the body's pumping out all the stress chemicals at a rate that we can't integrate. So, oftentimes, just taking a
Mm.
breather is enough for that to settle a little bit so that we can continue doing what we're doing. Right. I often will then having a cup of hot tea nearby. This isn't the best mug because it's insulated, but feeling the warmth is always
Mhm.
lovely. It just like, makes me feel good. I have this window right in front of me with these cherry trees, and there's often a bunch of little birds, and it's just so beautiful out there. So I'll often bring my attention out there and just sit quietly for a minute. Sometimes I even set my timer on my phone for like 1 minute and just
Sure.
just like commit to it, right? And then it could be bigger resources too, like I'm going to go for a walk, or I'm going to call a friend, or I'm going to, do a certain habit that makes me feel really good, or they can also be memories or memories of things. Like,
Hmm.
oh, there's a certain place that I love. I'm going to bring that to mind. And as I do, oh, I can feel a big sigh in my body. Right. So, again, anything that helps you feel a little bit more soothed, settled, a little bit better. Glimmers is another way as people like to describe them, right? Those reminders of like our positive emotion, like that triggers a positive emotional experience
Hmm.
rather than
Hmm.
something that's negative. Yeah.
And is that something then when you are coaching, and we'll get into again a little bit more about how you work with women, but when you're coaching women, this resourcing, is that something that you are coaching them to when they're actually in a state of feeling safety or feeling good, that they are creating this list of resources either on a piece of paper or in their mind, so that they
Yes.
have access to that when they're stressed? Okay, so that is something that you would encourage people to do. So at some point when they're feeling fine, feeling good, whatever, put together that resource list for themselves.
Yeah, and usually when I first start working with someone, that's like one of the first things we do, right? We do orienting and we do resourcing. We don't do much more else of that. We will do a little bit of the body check and stuff, but the orienting gives me a sense of where they're at in their nervous system. It's usually pretty obvious. And then, yeah, the resourcing, because it's so hard to reach for these things when you're in the moment of stress, you know? Yeah.
Even if you've practiced them, sometimes
Yeah.
it's hard when you're in that
Yeah.
moment of stress to
Yes.
remember to orient yourself and to, yes,
Yeah.
think of another memory, or put your hand, even putting your hand on your
Yeah.
chest or your heart or something. Yeah, you're right. Unless you've
Yeah.
one, you know what those things are, and like you said, practicing them when it's times of, minor stress, right?
Yeah.
Right, to be
Yeah.
able to do that, so that when those major episodes happen, that you have the access to that too. So
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
okay.
And yeah, those are the foundations of, I would say, nervous system healing and of making any kind of change you want in your life. Right? And this is really like kind of what I teach. I have this whole like ecosystem map that I love, and it
Yeah.
first starts with these foundations of safety, right?
Okay.
So that you know how to resource yourself when things get hard. Because I'm a habits coach too, so um, my habit stuff, for lack of a better word, is inspired by Ayurveda, which is the medicine system of India you're familiar with. Yeah, like
Yes.
5,000 years old. I haven't done any formal study, but just 20 years of committed to that lifestyle, ebb and flow with it like anything. But, it's so hard to create new habits for yourself when, we have all these old patterns that are based on probably, I don't know, just life, right? And maybe survival patterns too, right?
Sure.
And change, just because the fact that it's different can be seen as a threat, even though you might be feeling good and you want to create change. Creating change is hard, right? Getting past these old patterns are hard. So it starts then with finding safety and regulation, and knowing how to know where your own capacity is at, what's enough, what's too much, right? So that then
Right.
you can start from that place and then find the things that are supportive for you outside of that, and just starting a little bit at a time, if that makes sense.
I love that. Right. And you talk about safety, and really my understanding of creating new habits is that one, our bodies like sameness, right? Our
Yeah.
bodies, our
Yep.
bodies are here to keep us alive. They're like, you're
Yes.
doing a good job right now, so don't change anything, just keep doing what you're doing. But
Yeah.
when we want to create new habits, that is a little bit of a change. Our bodies are like, oh, I'm not really sure if we
Yep.
should go there or not. And we're really just creating new neural pathways in our brain, right? So that takes time. So I love the fact that you said just a little at a time, like start small
Mm-hmm.
and then just be consistent, right? Start small, do those little things, and then your body, if I'm hearing you correctly, will continue to feel safe, and then you'll be support. Your body will support you in that change. Because I know
Exactly.
one of the things that you had said, or that I read about you too, is that we want to work with our bodies, right,
Yes.
instead of
Yeah.
against our bodies. And so often we just try to make these big radical changes, and our bodies are like, whoa. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure that's safe for you,
Yeah.
even though our brains we know logically, but we need our
Yes.
bodies to we need to work in conjunction. It feels weird to talk about our bodies in the third person, but really
It does.
it a little is, right? That we need to work with
Yeah.
our bodies. So
Yeah. Yeah.
um, before we move on from that, I do have a couple, and maybe, or we can get to that. And I would love to know, like, if you have resources for when if people are reading about building habits or Ayurveda, are there some good resources, or you can send them to me later if you can't think of them right now as well, and I can put them in the show notes. But I know my listeners love to, and I
Yeah.
love to
Well,
read.
yeah, two people come to mind. A man, he's kind of like the guy who wrote the book on habits. His name is James Clear.
Hmm.
He
Hmm.
wrote his book is called Atomic Habits, and
Hmm.
he's done a lot of podcasts and stuff, and he talks a lot about how to create good habits, right? Like tiny habits, and how to like create a system for how to get them in place. So that's I'm inspired by him. And then a woman, an Ayurvedic practitioner that I love, her name is Kate with a I think with a K, Kate O'Donnell.
Okay.
And she's great. She's all over Instagram, and she just teaches more about the Ayurvedic lifestyle and like food and like habits and stuff like that. Yeah, she's lovely. Two people come to mind. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I love James Clear. I have not heard of Kate, so I will definitely look her up because I am intrigued by that lifestyle too.
Yeah.
So,
Wonderful.
um, yes. So sorry if I interrupted, like where you were
That's okay.
going
I don't remember
next.
where I was. No, I can just
Yeah, no, no, no.
this stuff
I
is
mean, I
so good.
think
So talk about joy. Like I love this because talking about this sparks me up for sure. I don't know if you can tell.
yes.
Like just like I could just go on and on. And so I've kind of
So
lost where I was.
where does then? Oh, so I am. So when someone is feeling, I don't even know what they're feeling off. What I'm trying to get to is, why would someone reach out to you? How would I know, like, I need to work with a somatic practitioner? So what would be my impetus? Would I be feeling something physical? Is it something emotional? Like, where
Yeah.
is it in my space? Would I be like, oh, this is what I need?
Yeah, it could be both of those things. That's a good question. No one's ever asked me that before. So I'm like, oh, how do I answer this one? Um, a lot of folks with it's familiar with a lot of folks who are in the world of trauma healing, who have
Mm-hmm.
like a history of trauma, whether it's from early developmental trauma, shock trauma, any other kind of things that might be showing up, and that they notice that their quality of life is not great, and they've tried a lot of things and they don't know what else to do, so they often will come to a somatic practitioner because of that, right? It's kind of like the last, because it is kind of a new, more nichey kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing, right? And so it's not really recognized so much by mainstream medicines as a modality right now. I mean, there are some, but so people who have tried a lot of things and don't know where else to go come to me, but a lot of the women who find me are already educated in this kind of thing, in this kind of modality. So they come to me because they want to, like, I have this one woman a client of mine who she's just overwhelmed. She can't deal with life. She's busy. She's an entrepreneur. She has kids, and she wanted to be able to not be so reactive all the time. Right?
Okay.
Not be so reactive all the time. Some people come to me because they have having trouble sleeping, or they're actually having issues like autoimmune stuff. Like that's so related to the nervous system. Like all our health stuff is related to the nervous system. Because I think about the ability to how our body detects threat or safety. It's a function of the autonomic nervous system, which also governs all the other automatic functions of our body, like breathing, digestion, our sleep cycle, our wake cycle, et cetera, hormone stuff, right? So yeah, anyone who just wants to get a sense of peace, learn how to um, feel more empowered, that they have control over what's going on in their body so they can more control in their life.
Okay. And
Yeah.
is the work then that you are doing with them, is it all conversation? Is it talk? Does it have any, do you go anything into Reiki or healing touch or any of those modalities as well? Or is it conversation and practice, and what does the actual thing
Yeah,
look like?
yeah. It is conversation and practice, and there's a touch element to it. There's a whole, I just did a training past December with a woman named Kathy Kane, who's like the guru in somatic touch. Like she was amazing just to be around in her presence. Like, oh, um, so, but typically I work online with people, and it's a lot about just asking them, like, we'll start off with some conversation, because getting the ventral vagal, that social engagement part of the nervous system, that also helps encourage
Hmm.
safety in the system, some orientation, some resourcing, and then eventually check-ins, like what are you noticing in your body if as you talk about XYZ, right? And then that just starts from there. But when we have a touch session, I have a massage table, people like massage table. Essentially, I'm using my hands to sense into what's going on in their body. Like, oh God, and it could be seen as Reiki, it could be seen as energy work, but not specifically in this work. Like, there's actually a real thing that I'm doing. It's like, okay, I'm sensing into the layers of your body per se, like your skin, your bone, your fascia, your muscle, or I'm sensing into your digestive organs, or maybe I'm working with someone's adrenals. I'm just putting my hands under the kidneys because that's the stress response, or the brainstem, right? So the touch stuff is so fascinating because we because our bodies are physical, right? And there's only so much you can do by talking sometimes, and sometimes
Hmm.
just having a hand underneath your kidney, feeling that support, can allow that condition for regulation to happen.
Right.
Yeah. Like I
So
had some.
different, so
Yeah.
different than and I'm not as familiar with Reiki. I know a little bit more about healing touch, um, but so you're not necessarily helping energy flow through the chakra system, but helping, is it that they're feeling supported in that area, or how does that, yeah,
Yeah,
talk a little
it's
bit.
enough to essentially it's enough to help their body feel supported so that they can release stress. They can
Gotcha.
release some tension, right? And it's kind of in a mysterious way, because I am using my hand and I am putting my attention, like my focus and attention is in them, with the intention of I come in peace, or
Yeah.
like there, honey bun, like I'm with you. I'm with you, right? Like creating that safety, because there's that co-regulating factor. Like humans, we are these ultra social species. We need other people around us to survive as well. Like we're wired for protection, we're wired for connection. And then having that direct connection with a safe person, actually making physical contact with you, can be so profoundly healing, right? So
Yeah.
profoundly healing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So if I am feeling, and again, what I'm hearing from you is that I would be feeling some sort of emotional dysregulation, right? So
Mhm.
something is happening, and so one option then is for me to work with a practitioner. But besides the two things you already talked about, orientation and resourcing, are there other activities or tips or techniques that, and I know everything is really personal, and it is situation probably dependent, but are there other things that you can share with the listeners, of things that they can do themselves to calm themselves or to kind of start to feel that sense of safety that you talked about?
Yeah, the third foundational piece. So I have the three: orienting, resourcing, and I have a third one, which is following impulse. So
Okay.
this one's interesting. So impulse, what I mean is um, an impulse is a biological need, right? So it's a cue
Okay.
from the body that it needs something different from impulsive behavior. I just want to make that clear right there,
Thank you.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah, so impulse as in like your body, there's a feeling of hunger. It gives you the impulse to eat. It's the cue for you to eat. You have a feeling of coldness. It cues you to seek warmth, right? To go to the bathroom, to stretch, to move, etc. Um, so I'm starting with these really basic, to use the bathroom. Maybe I didn't say that. And I'm starting with these basic impulses, these really simple ones that most of us know what they feel like in our body, right? But we start
Hmm.
there because oftentimes we lose the connection or we ignore them when they show up. Like, I don't know how many times have you sat down at your computer, your laptop, you're like, I have to pee. Oh, just let me finish this email, right? Like, even that kind of thing. So learning how to like recognize impulses or when they show up and acting at them in real time is super important. So it comes back to earlier when I mentioned how we have an expression for protection
Hmm.
or excuse me, an impulse for protection or expression, and then it gets shut down, and that's essentially what creates trauma in the body. So by by practicing really listening to what your body needs and acting on it in real time, you start to build this trust with your body. It's building safety. Though I'm listening, I'm here for you. It's safe for me to feel you, and I will support you based on what I'm feeling and what you're telling me. Over time, then that will create the conditions for that safety for those other bigger impulses to be able to show up or to be acted out. So like no, right? I remember when I was first starting this work, because it can be slow. It depends, on your nervous system, your history, and people are like, is this even working? And then all of a sudden they realize like, oh, like this was my case. Like, wow, I just spoke up for myself and I didn't cry. Like that was
Mm.
huge. That was huge, right? That was always
Amazing.
for me. Yeah, yeah.
I love that, and I love um, the the advice to start to practice, right? Start to
Hmm.
practice, or
Yeah.
start to choose to listen to your body, because you're right. I talk about that often with clients as well. Is that our bodies are telling us things all the time. I mean, our bodies are giving us feedback all the
Yep.
time. I joke sometimes that when I just have to roll my eyes when I am watching TV and I see these commercials for antacids, like,
Mm.
oh, your body, your food is fighting back. I'm
Totally.
like, just don't eat that food then. I mean, your
Yes.
body is telling you something. If you
Yes.
need to reach for an antacid, that means that perhaps that food isn't good for your
Yes.
body.
I I
Let's start
totally
before
get
that
that.
acid,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
I
Yes.
mean, I giggle a little bit, but I know it's hard, and I realize that we are bombarded with things all of the time. But if we can practice some of the things that you've already shared, and then listen to our bodies, and sometimes it's hard to listen to our bodies because we think that we are, and maybe we are because we craving Cheetos. We're not really craving Cheetos, but we have built those gut microbiome. So, but to
Yes.
start to, so that's a whole other
I
topic.
could go off on
Um,
that too.
but if we really listen to what our bodies need and then start to give it, our bodies are going to give us better cues,
Yes.
and then that creates that whole cycle of, oh, that whole trust cycle, that we
Yes.
can trust that our bodies are giving us the right cues, and then our bodies can trust that we're going to do something with that cue,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
it's just, I feel like, and you've alluded to that too, it's just like a friendship,
It
right?
is.
I mean, it's just like how you would have a friendship with your spouse or your best friend or your children or whatever, that we need to have that trust, because people are telling us things, our bodies are telling us things, and we need to react in that way. And so often our bodies are probably the last thing that and maybe because we're not taught in our American culture, that we're not taught to trust that or taught to listen. I think
Yeah.
listening is even the first thing that happens before trust because you have to be able to listen.
Yeah.
So we're not taught that piece of it. And you're right, especially when we get to the workforce or, whatever that might be, that we're taught to do the things first and then we can take care of ourselves later
Later. Yeah, if we have time,
if
right?
we have
Like,
time.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Like cultural conditioning plays a huge part and a huge role into like why this is hard for a lot of us, right? And even it goes back to like, it goes back to being a child. It all goes back to being a child. And simple things that parents do that, don't seem maybe harmful in the moment, but like you can't leave the table until you finish your
Leave your plate.
plate. Yeah, right. Like, I get it. The parents concerned about the kid eating and getting food in their body or getting the right kind of food, but like, what if that kid's actually not hungry, right? And what does that teach the kid then, right? Or don't cry. There's a lot of kids who aren't allowed to cry or show emotion, or again, being expressive, right? They get shut down, or even just going to school. Like school, oh my God! Like I have a middle schooler and a high schooler now, but I remember when my younger son was in kindergarten, like he was a kid who just needed to run and bash and move and like slam his body into things. Like that's just how he moved. And kindergarten, which is like the new first grade, they have to sit in a circle, right? They
Mm-hmm.
sit still, you can't speak. So he's like, his system is working so hard all day, inhibiting these impulses that he has. And then when he came home, he would just be a wreck because it was just, you know, it
Yeah.
was a lot of work to do that.
Hard. Yeah.
Hard, so hard. Anyway, yeah. So like, so you can see how, and then our culture of production and what success looks like, right? Of ignoring, pushing through, and all that stuff. Yeah. So you can
Yeah.
see how we would lose connection with ourselves in this way.
So how do you coach women? Um, because you work with mainly with women, I think. How do you coach the women that you work with to start to listen to their bodies? Like, what are there certain practices? It's easy, and it's easy for you and I to talk about it because we probably have been practicing doing some of that
Sure.
already. But if
Yeah.
someone is like 100% disconnected with their
Mhm.
body, what are those first small steps that they can take in order to start to begin that new relationship with their body?
Yeah, well, it really just speaks to what I already shared.
So,
Really, just those foundational things. Orientation, like really bringing that in, recognizing what your resources are, right? And then learning to listen to your impulses, starting with your basic biological needs, the really
okay.
simple ones. Like I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I have to go to the bathroom, I need to move my body, I need stretch, I need connection, whatever. Those really kind of obvious, simple ones, and honoring them in real time. And I know it seems so basic and simple, but that's really the foundation. And then from there, it's like then we go into the body. Like you can't really go into like now what are you feeling if there isn't that ability to be in the present moment and to be
Yeah.
ability to know where your edge of your capacity is so that you can like be resourced enough to support yourself in the moment, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yeah. And I love the fact that you just reiterated that last piece about just honor. I mean, the first step really then is honoring your basic needs.
Yeah, it doesn't,
Everybody knows when they're hungry or when they have to
yeah,
go to the bathroom. So
yeah,
like noticing that and not waiting 4 more
yeah,
hours, unless
yeah.
you're a nurse in the OR and you have to whatever.
Sure. But
But when you
then,
have
but
that,
even then, because there are those moments where you can't, like you're driving in a car and you have to pee or whatever
sure,
it is. So just take a moment and you don't have to put a hand on yourself, but just acknowledge, like, hey, I know you're giving me this cue right now. I know you're asking me something. I hear you, and I promise you, I'll get to you as soon as I can. Right? Just that little bit
love
of
that.
acknowledgement. Yeah,
I
yeah.
love that
So
because I could hear that being a pushback, like, oh, I can't.
yeah,
But yeah, so just noticing that. So no, that is beautiful. So I love all of these things that you have talked about, and I think that you've given us some really good things to think about. I love those three foundational things of the orientation, the resourcing, and then the following the impulse. And as we kind of wrap up, and I will ask, how people get connected with you, but is there anything else that would be helpful or that you think, oh, Rachel, I really wish we'd have talked about X?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I feel pretty good. But and what's coming back to me is just the reminder, like to all of our listeners that like we are designed to heal, right? Our bodies,
Mm,
it is possible to feel good. It is possible to make change. The path might not look easy all the time, but like when we have these tools in place, these resources in place, like change I mean, I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with my clients. Like it does happen over time and it is possible. So I want to say that. Yeah.
I love it. And that's such a beautiful kind of sentiment to end on, that we all have this capacity. Sometimes we just need a little bit of help or a
Mhm.
coach to
Yeah.
move us in that direction. So if someone is listening and they are raising their hand and saying, yes, all of this stuff speaks to me,
Mhm.
I would love to work with you. How do they get connected to you?
Yeah. Well, they can go to my website. It's leahpieramurphy.com. Leah is my first name, Leah. Piera is my middle name, Piera, Murphy.com. I also have a free community on the school platform. It's called Living in Rhythm. And so this is where I have a couple of classroom modules that teaches these foundational practices as well as like some foundations in habit building as well. And there's like a free model and then a paid model that goes a little bit more in depth. Yeah, and so those are the two places where you can find me. And then my website has my email and contact info too if people want to email me. Yeah.
Perfect. So, and I will be sure to put those in the show notes. So, if you want to
Wonderful.
get connected with Leah, definitely check that out. I would absolutely say join the school community. It is free. You'll get a lot out of all of the more from Leah as well, and other women or
Yeah.
people who are interested kind of in that same thing. It's amazing to be in a community like that. So, we definitely encourage people to check that out. So, I just want to thank you so much. I know it's a little bit earlier. We're filming this. It's 8:30, I think, that when we started in Alaska. So
Mhm.
thank you so much for spending a little bit of time this morning with me and with our listeners. And for everybody out there, I am Rachel from Joy Unfiltered. And remember, I am celebrating you today and every day. So have fun, live well, enjoy.